Hey everyone, I am excited to be here and I have a great topic for today, all about creating inspiring content for your community. Definitely a big thing that comes up. Actually, I have a few clients that were asking me about this, like how do you continue to create inspiring content? How do you make sure you're not talking about the same thing all the time? What if I'm not feeling inspired? How do I come up with great content? And so this is an important topic because especially as when you want to have an online business, creating consistent, amazing, and inspiring content is super important. And it's really how people get to know us and what we're all about. They get to build that connection with us, that trust, and it's a really important piece of the puzzle. And so I want to talk about that today. I'm going to go through everything that you need to know to really start creating amazing content and do it consistently and do it specifically for your ideal clients. Okay, so the biggest things I hear are people wondering, what do I talk about? How much do I give away for free? This is a big thing. Like, am I giving away too much for free? Am I, talking about too much? If I give away all this information, why would anyone want to work with me? Because I've already told them everything that I would tell them if they're going to work with me. So do I sound like an expert? Who am I to talk about this? Like I maybe questioning like your ability to stand as an expert. Like, do I know enough? Like, that comes up for a lot of people. Just feeling like you don't have enough to talk about. Like, I only have a few things to talk about. Like, how am I going to come up with literally like weeks, months, years of content to put out there? And just really not knowing how to come up with ideas. So I'm going to go through, I have a number of things I want to give you guys. I actually came up with a kind of big list. So be prepared, but it's a good one. So number one, you need to know who your ideal client is. I know I talk about this all the time. If you are confused about who your ideal client is, I have an awesome ideal client guide that walks you through the steps of really, I think, helping you get clear on who your ideal client is. But this is really important because if you don't know who you're speaking to when you create content, it's really hard to create content because you could talk about anything. And when you have a specific person in mind, and the more specific you are about who this person is, the better. But then it becomes a lot easier to create content because you know who you're speaking to. You know who you're speaking to, you know what they're struggling with, you know what they're interested in, you know what results they want. And really like, you really have this idea of who this person is so you can speak to them specifically. But if you're just helping people with like health coaching, it's so general. Like, what are you supposed to talk about? You could talk about everything. You could talk about every health condition. You could talk about weight. You could talk about, it's just way too challenging. And not only is it challenging, it's not really, it's a little confusing for the people you want to be working with because they don't really know who you work with and what you help people with because you're talking about everything. But if you really focus in on one specific area, then people start to see you as an expert in a particular area and they're like, oh my gosh, she could, really help me with that. And so I think it really makes it a lot easier for you and it makes it way more powerful for your ideal client. And so when it comes to a marketing perspective, like know who your ideal client is, it's going to make your content creation so much better. And if you get really stuck on this, it's something I help all my clients with. It's a huge part of your business. I would say like it's the starting point because it's very hard to move forward and market effectively, especially online. If you're doing some marketing in person, you can afford to be a little less specific with your ideal client. Online, the more specific, the better. It's going to help you so much. So to come up with a list like of ideas to talk about, I would say reflect on your journey if you're helping people who have been through what you've gone through yourself and make a list of like all the things you struggled with. The other thing would be you could interview people. So find people to interview who are your ideal client and ask them, questions that are going to get them clear on, that are going to help you get clear on what those people are struggling with. It's going to help you so much. Interviews are super powerful. The other thing is to send out polls or surveys. And the important thing is to make sure that you're polling and surveying your ideal client. You don't want to just put it out there in general, because then it's not necessarily helping you. But I get clear on like who you want to be working with, and then start polling and surveying those people. And it's going to help you come up with content ideas, like probably endless content ideas. Hey, Rachel, need to narrow your focus client. Yeah, definitely. It's going to help you so much. A lot of people who end up spinning in their business and not really getting anywhere, it's because they're not really clear on who their ideal client is. Of course, there's a lot of things that can go on, but I find for a lot of people, that's one of the biggest things that's going on. Okay, so number 2 is just go through and brainstorm everything that your ideal client struggles with. Everything. Like, you should have a page. You should have pages of stuff, because I promise you, any ideal client, even if they're struggling with something, let's say you're focusing on weight or a certain health condition, there's going to be a ton of other things that go along with this that they're struggling with. So I'd make a list of everything they're struggling with. And the other thing is, you could make a list of everything that you know of that you feel like could help this person. So it's kind of giving you things to talk about on both sides, on what they're struggling with and how you help them. And so I think that's super helpful. Keep that list like somewhere where you can add to it all the time. I'm always adding to my list of things to talk about. And it really helps me, because I never get to a point where I'm like, what? I don't have anything to talk about. So keep that ongoing list. You could keep a list on your phone, so you always have it with you. Maybe you're going for a walk or something and you get a hit of inspiration. Make sure you write that stuff down, because you can come back to it and use it later. So the next thing, number 3, is to live an inspiring life. Like, get out there, live your life, do things, because I find that creating content really comes from, number 1, like working in my business. But if you're first getting started, you don't necessarily have that going for you, but you probably do have experiences going on with getting started in your business, going through your health coach training. Like, you can really pull from your life. And I think the more inspiring of a life, the more you're trying new things, the more you're putting yourself out there, the more you're going to be able to come up with content. I really think it helps a lot. And the other thing I would say is to always continue learning new things. I am constantly listening to podcasts, reading books, because I love what I help people with, right? I'm so interested in it. So I'm always learning more. And I find that it's very inspiring, and it's always giving me more ideas and more things that I can talk about. So you can take what you get from other sources, whether it's books, videos, podcasts, and you can make it your own. Like, take an idea from it that inspires you, and then bring it to your reflection on it and talk about it. And that makes it your own. All the ideas in the world are most of them are out there, and they're all we're using them and putting our own spin on them, and that's fine. That's how everything in the world is created, whether it's art, whether it's ideas, programs, and that's perfectly fine. So don't be like, oh my gosh, I have to create everything totally new. You can take other people's stuff or ideas and just make it your own, put your own spin on it, add your story to it, how it shows up in your life. So this is really going to help as well. Always be learning more stuff. Doesn't mean you have to go and do more trainings. That's not what I'm saying. But always continue to learn and just expand your brain and your mind, and it's going to help you so much in your business as well. So number 4 is always make sure that this kind of goes to number 1 too, where it's talking about your ideal client. But always make sure that you're creating your content for your ideal client, okay? This is really important, with them in mind, but you can talk about things that aren't necessarily just specific to the one problem you really help people solve. Because most of us, we want to focus on one problem we're helping people solve. So I want to give you an example of this. So let's say you want to help people with weight loss. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to help people with weight loss because I I figured out that it's about so much more than just losing weight, right? But where you probably started your journey as well was it was about the weight, right? And then you realize like, oh my gosh, there's all these other things that help with the weight loss. So when it comes to if you're helping someone with weight loss, you can talk about all those things that are related, such as mindset. Maybe spirituality was a big thing for you. Maybe stuff that was going on in your relationships, or stuff that had happened in the past, things that people had said to you. Maybe meditation really helped you, or yoga, or, whatever it is. Like, you can bring in all this stuff and you can talk about it in relation to the one thing that you're really helping your ideal client with. So don't think like every piece of content I do has to be about like specifically how to lose weight. No, it can be related to other topics that are, somehow related to the weight loss. But make sure that you always bring it back, whatever you're talking about, to the weight loss if that's what you're helping people with. Because they're going to want to know, like, how does this relate to what it is that you're specifically saying you help people with? And the other thing that I think comes up for people is they say like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm talking about the same thing all the time. Truly, I feel like I'm talking about the same thing all the time too. And that's fine, because your ideal client is struggling with certain things, right? And so if you continue to talk about those certain things, every time you talk about it, it's going to come out a different way, and different people are going to see it. And so it's okay to talk about the same thing more than once. It's okay to talk about it frequently if it's something that comes up, because your perspective of that is always changing as you continue to learn and continue on your journey. So you're going to be able to bring a new perspective to it, and different people are always seeing it. And sometimes people just need to hear something exactly the right way, and you might say it the right way on one day. That's exactly how they need to hear it. So let me see what else I had for you. Okay, number 5 is to make sure that you're telling stories in your content. Like, people love stories. So make sure you're bringing your personal experience into everything that you're talking about, and not making your content sound like a research paper. Okay. A lot of times I totally got into this when I was getting started in my business, and I thought I had to write like all my content and blogs and stuff kind of like a research paper, and like give statistics and all this stuff. And I really realized that that's not what it's about. Like, people can go and find the information anywhere online. But what it's about is really making that connection with people, making it personal, and I think bringing it into how you see it and relate in your life. And so you really want to make everything come from your experience and your perspective, and not be like someone's reading like a research paper or a scientific article or journal or something, because that's not what they're looking for when they are looking for someone to help them with a specific problem. So let me know if that makes sense for you guys. But that's a lot of times we get stuck in that. Like, you want all your content to really sound conversational, like they're reading a story, or they're like, kind of having a conversation with you, not like it's like scientific jargon. You're going to lose people if you do that. So, and the other thing that goes with that is, I think a lot of people get stuck in looking at what everyone else is doing and trying to write things or trying to do content in that specific way. And I think it's fine to get inspired by other people, but really allow things to be your own. It helps so much if you just reflect on it right from your heart and just let it come out. And I think this is really a practice, and something that I had to work on as well. Like, when I first started my business, writing content was like pulling teeth. It was so hard for me. And now that I've been doing it, and I do it every day pretty much, it's easy. And it's not always easy, but usually it's easy, and it doesn't take me a lot of time. And so just know in the beginning it's going to feel a little harder. It doesn't mean you can't do it. Doesn't mean that you're not good at it. It just means you got to practice. Practice makes perfect, right? Or practice makes things easier. So Lorena, makes perfect sense. Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. So let me see what else I had. Okay, so number 6, told you guys I had a lot for you. So you want to make sure that the content you're putting out there is actionable, is what I want to say. Like, it's something that's giving them actions that they can take. You really want your content to actually give people, for them to be able to put what you're talking about into place, and it actually helps them. It helps them get a result. It helps them get forward momentum. It maybe tells them something that they didn't know, or you really want people to find your content like super helpful. And this is something that I have really found, and I actually had a call with someone the other day, and they were like, I've been watching all your videos and putting all that you are teaching into place, and I've actually made tons of progress moving forward with my business. And I'm like, that's so awesome. And it doesn't mean that I'm because I'm putting out good content that she's like, oh my gosh, I've already know everything and I don't need your help. And I think that's really like, don't get stuck in like, if I put out too much information, people aren't going to need my help. What I think really happens is if you're putting out really good information and it's actually helping people make changes in their life before they ever even work with you, then they're even more inspired to work with you, because they're like, she really knows what she's talking about. I really find her stuff helpful, and I really believe she could help me even more if I worked with her. And if someone just watches all my content and they don't sign up to work with me, that's fine. Like, that's fine. I'm glad I'm helping people. And of course, like, I think it's just important. So keep that in mind. Don't be so scared, like, oh, I'm putting too much out there and now people aren't going to want to work with me because they already know everything. There's a difference between, I think, like, putting out too much in the way that it's like overwhelming and confusing. Like, if you gave them every step that they would need to do to get the end result, but you can put things out in little pieces that people find very helpful. And you either want it to be really helpful, you want it to be really inspiring, or what was the last thing I had? Oh, entertaining. So that one might be a little less for you, unless you really love doing entertaining things. I think that's like great as well. But that's kind of the key. Like, you want it actionable, you want it inspiring, and you want it to be entertaining. You don't want to have content that is putting people to sleep, because they aren't going to want to interact with it. So think about like what things you like. Like, do you like videos? Do you like reading blogs? Do you like podcasts? And that's the type of content that you could be putting out there, because most likely your ideal client likes something similar. Hey, Dana, so glad you're here. So number 7 then is your call to action. So you want to make sure all your content has some sort of call to action to it. It can be sign up for a free call with me. It can be comment below on, I would ask like a specific question and tell them to comment below. But you want to have something, it's good to like be able to get some interaction going with your content and to tell them what you want them to do. So always have some sort of call to action on your content, whether it's asking a question, having them sign up for a free offer that you have, a free call with you, but have some sort of call to action, some sort of something that you want them to do. Number 8 is plan ahead and commit to being consistent. This is really, really important. So a lot of times when we're getting started, it can be really easy to just like post and do things in your business whenever you feel like it. And what I can tell you is if you do this, then you're treating your business like a hobby, right? So if you told your boss, I'm going to come into work when I feel like it, your boss would fire you, right? Like, that's unacceptable. And so I think we have to hold ourselves to the same standards in our own business. Of course, like emergencies may happen, you know, things like that. But other than that, like, you really want to be super consistent and you want to show up on a regular basis. So I would decide what that is for you. I really say like having like some sort of content, a bigger piece of content that you're putting out weekly. Like maybe it's a video, maybe it's a podcast or a blog post, and then having like littler things you do every day on social media, little posts. But I think having something that you're doing weekly is super important. Obviously, the more you're showing up and the more frequent you do it, the quicker your business is going to build, and the quicker you're going to find your voice, and you're going to be able to create more content easier. So it takes some practice. Like I said in the beginning, it's a practice. And so I think the more you're practicing in the beginning, the better you get at it. And the more you kind of find your groove in creating your content. And it doesn't know that you can be flexible. It doesn't have to be video. It doesn't have to be writing blogs. It doesn't have to be a podcast. But I would pick like, those are kind of like the bigger pieces of content that you could put out there. So I would pick one and stick with it and then build up a body of work. So you could have a body of work available on your website, on YouTube, on iTunes if you do a podcast. But it's nice to have a place where people can come and find your whole body of work somewhere and go through it. So, and I think that really allows people to get to know you really well too. So the number 9 goes with number 8 too, but it is do it even when you don't feel like it. So this is where you're planning ahead and then doing it anyways. I think is really important. So I hear a lot of people like, I'm just feeling really uninspired right now. Don't know what to write about. Do it anyways. I have lots of times where I don't feel inspired in my business, but I do it anyways. Okay. It's the same thing. Like if you go into a job and you're like, hey, I'm not feeling inspired today, so I can't create anything. And you had a job where you were having to create things, like you would be fired. That's like not acceptable. So a lot of times we think like, oh, I have to have this like wave of inspiration or whatever it is. Like, no, you can still create things even if you're not feeling super inspired. When you are feeling inspired, like roll with it. Maybe you want to create like more content at that time and kind of have a stash of it. But truly, I've been really consistent, and even days where I'm not feeling super inspired, I just come up with stuff. And it may not be my very best work, but that's fine. It's about being consistent and showing up. And the other thing is when you aren't consistent, it shows that you're unreliable. So clients, especially when they're looking for a coach, they want to know that someone is reliable, they're going to show up, they're doing the work, they're taking things seriously in their business. And if you just show up every once in a while and put stuff out there, it's not showing that you're reliable. And so I think that's really important, like showing that you're someone that shows up, does the work, and reliable. So last piece for you guys is not to take the reactions such as likes, comments, whatever, as a proof or showing that you're putting out good content. Because, especially in the beginning, you don't have a big following, and people, it's probably gonna be like crickets when you put stuff out there, and that's fine. Some of my best posts, like nobody likes it, and I'm like, that was so good, what's going on? But if I started taking that personally and made it mean that I wasn't putting out good content, I shouldn't be doing it, I don't have what it takes, nobody likes me, I would have never gotten anywhere in my business. So you really have to put things out there for the passion of putting it out there and teaching, and knowing that you need to build up a body of work and people will find it, or we're going to want to lead people to it. But in the beginning, especially, you can't take things personally. You can't, wait for people to like it or comment and make that mean that it's good content. And this is really, really important. You have to just put it out there and own it and be like, this is freaking amazing and awesome. And, I'm hoping that people will find it, and eventually they will, like, I promise you that. But in the beginning, like, just keep that in mind. Just put it out there and don't take any of it personally. Because a lot of times you got to build up that community before people are going to be liking your stuff and finding it. So let me see. Let me know if you guys have any questions specifically about content, because I would be happy to answer them. And I'm going to see. Yeah, Dana, being reliable and consistent is hugely important. Absolutely. Like, it makes such a difference. And I wasn't the best at that in the beginning of my business. And I have so noticed a difference when I've shown up consistently and put out content. And really, for me, video's been the big thing. And I was super, super scared of video in the beginning. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do videos. Now I love them. And I put them out consistently, and I've gotten such great feedback, like I said, on them. And so it's really become like my thing, but I do it consistently. And even when I don't feel like doing it and I don't want to show up and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, I just do it anyways. And it always ends up okay. So let me see what you're saying, Lorena. Yeah, a lot of us are treating our business like a hobby. So, and that's fine if you want your business to be a hobby, but if you want it to make you an income, you cannot treat it like a hobby. You got to treat it like a job. And you're your own boss, so you got to hold yourself responsible. You got to be like, you got to show up, you got to do the work, even if when you don't feel like it. And that's why if you plan ahead of time, then you're like I know, like I have a certain day each week where I'll like write my newsletter and that type of stuff. On that day, if I don't feel like doing it, I'm gonna do it anyways. So that's where you want to like set up that schedule and really plan ahead of time for yourself. Dakota, hey, I'm so glad to hear that. Crystal, okay, so how often is your call to action and offer for a call directly related to working with you versus answering questions? Yeah, that's a great question, Crystal. So I like to say, like, if you're posting, so I typically post during the week, so like 5 times the week. Sometimes I'll post during the weekend, but I really like to have my weekends kind of free from social media. So that's kind of just been something I've decided for myself. And so I usually say, like, if you can have a call to action to like work with you or sign up for a call, I think if you're posting like 5 times a week, I would say like maybe twice per week would be a good number to like actually sign up for a call. But the thing is, like, I've really like changed my perspective on it, because I feel like when I'm putting out there a call to action as far as signing up for a call, that I'm putting it out there from a place of service and wanting to help people. And like, you know, I see these people that get stuck and I'm like, I want to help you and I know I could help you. And so, you know, I'm putting it out there like, if you want to work with me, I can help you. And so I think when you can just shift your perspective from like, oh, I'm being salesy or pushy, and instead like, I know I can help these people and I want to let them know. And sometimes people need to hear it a bunch of times before they're ready, and that's fine. But that's really how I feel about it. I'm like, I know I could help you. So, you know, that's where I'm coming from when I put it out there. And so like, I don't feel bad about putting it out there in any way. And I think people who are really interested in possibly working with you and what you're putting out there aren't going to be turned off in any way if you're putting out offers to work with them, because they probably want it. Hey, Catherine, so glad you caught it live. Woohoo! All right, Dana. Yeah, it's super helpful. Yeah, Dana's saying you use Asana. Is that what it is? App. Set tasks and have a date to get them done. Super helpful. Like, set tasks, put it in your calendar. I think like setting up, like I said, a content schedule as far as like these days I'm doing these things, it's really helpful for you. And I've just stayed consistent. My live videos sometimes kind of change what day I'm doing them on, but I always look at the week ahead and I schedule it on the day that I'm going to do it. And I know that I will do one every week, and that's just a commitment I've made to myself, and I am holding that commitment. Of course, if I like took vacation, I was traveling or whatever, maybe I would take a week off, and that's fine. But as far as like regular and consistent, I've definitely stuck with it, and it's been huge, like game changer for my business. Anyone else have any questions related to creating content? Anything you're getting stuck with? Any questions you have specifically on anything you're trying to create? If you do, type them in. If you catch the replay, type them in. So obviously this is stuff I help everyone with, creating content, like getting clear on your ideal client, programs, all of that. If you find you get stuck with this, you want to take your business from hobby to actual business where you're making income and getting clients, like that's my jam. That is what I help people with, and I know I can help you because you know, my clients get awesome results. So let me see what else you guys had some. So if you are interested, I will put a link in here and you guys can sign up for a call. And I'd be happy to talk to you more about whether us working together is a good fit. Let me see what else you guys said. All right, so it's pinned to the top. Yes. Thinking about it as service instead of sales helps so much. Setting up strategic alliances to help your business growing. So, I can see if I can do a video on that one for you guys. So that's kind of a whole different topic, but that's a good one too. Hey, Samoya. So glad you're here. Let me see. Now I can't see the comments. Hold on, let me see if I can pin them up. Okay, so I missed some of your comments. I don't know why it's not letting me to see them. If I missed one of them, and if you guys could type it again, it won't let me scroll through them. Thank you for the likes and hearts, you guys. I know one of you guys typed a comment and I missed it, and it like popped up above the thing and it won't let me scroll down. So if you want to retype it, if I missed yours, otherwise I'll write and answer it. But it won't let me scroll down and see what you wrote. So tricky. Okay, guys, so if you don't have any other questions, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you think of anything and you want me to answer it, feel free to ask it here. And like I said, if I missed what you asked, I will go and answer it because it's not letting me get to your comment. So, and if you're interested in finding out more about working with me, set up a free call with me. I do not bite, and I would be happy to talk to you more about your business. So thank you everyone who joined me live. I love having you guys on. It's so amazing to get to interact with you. Oh, let me see. A video on creating multiple income streams. Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's something I could definitely do. I think someone asked about like having topics for certain days of the week. That's definitely something you could do too. Like you could have like Motivation Monday, Tip Tuesday, you know, that type of thing if you want to. For me, that's not how I create my content, just because it usually like I just get inspired by something and I sit down and I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a post. I usually do it at the same time every day, like in the morning. And I'm just like, usually I base it off of something that's been going on with my clients, something that I'm struggling with myself, or something that happened to me. So for example, I wrote a post this week about like my car windshield got smashed in the back window. And I like related it to your business, right? Like they have nothing to do with each other, but I found a way that they did. And so a lot of times I reflect on things that happen in my life that may seem kind of significant. And I see like, how does this fit into what I help people with in some way? And I try to pull from that inspiration. And so that's typically how I create my content. But I think if you want to have like a certain type of theme or something like that, that's a great way to do it as well. Hey, Jillian, thank you for the heart. I love that. Let me see. I think I saw one other. Oh, someone was asking about, Catherine, I think it was you, about topics for live videos. I would just do it the same as topics for anything you're going to write, whether it's a post or a video. Like, I think if you're working with people and you know what people are really struggling with, or if you went through and you wrote down all the things that people are struggling with, pick which one really pops out to you the most and create content on that one. I always go on like, what am I feeling most inspired to speak about right now? Usually it has to do with something that's I've personally been struggling with, or my clients have been struggling with. And so I kind of really like go from inspiration when I'm creating. But sometimes you got to find what works with you. Some people do better, more structured as far as like, you know, days of the week, I'm doing certain things, certain topics, and that can be helpful as well. So, all right, guys, any last questions? If you think of anything, feel free to add it, and I will be happy to answer them. Yeah, you're welcome, Catherine. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of the day. Catherine, you did a poll and it's not getting traction. Okay, feel free to post your poll multiple times. I always say this too, like if you're doing a poll or a survey or something like that, you could always post it multiple times. Sometimes people just don't see it. And you could maybe tell people, go and like your friends or something, go and start answering on the poll so that it gets pushed up in the newsfeed and more people see it. Or you could tag people in the poll that you think might be good people to answer it to make sure they're seeing it. This is why you guys should never take anything personally, because a lot of times, you know, Facebook shows things to certain people based on, you know, whatever, their formula. And sometimes people just aren't seeing it. It has nothing to do with like you personally, or like they don't like you or they don't want to answer or whatever. So I would repost it and or post it somewhere else and see if you can tag people or have some people comment on it to get it going up in the poll. Yeah, you could also bump it or pin it to the top of if it's in a group or something. But that's something you could do too. Hey, Samoya, thank you for the heart and the cute little doggy. You're welcome, Dana. Crystal, so glad you found that helpful. All right, you guys, awesome. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and a great weekend and that it's nice and springy by you. And I will talk to all you guys soon. Bye, guys.